having conquered the tallest peak but then getting pushed down, what do? Do you climb back up or let it get the best of you and give up? Steve, 45, from Manchester, England, has been living on the street for years. He cannot even remember how he ended up in this position, but he gave up a long time ago, not intending to change anything. In the morning, his day begins with the search for food. He was content mainly with leftovers from the garbage cans of city restaurants. And in the evening, he would look for a place to sleep from where he would not be chased by the local police. For the past few months, he has been sleeping under a bridge. It was dry and comfortable enough for a man accustomed to being content with little. The only thing that Steve never parted with was his old accordion, which he learned to play in his youth and masterfully did it in the underpass to earn some money for his livelihood. One evening, Steve, as usual, after spending the day looking for food, quietly wandered to the crosswalk to play a few of his favorite tunes and get a little money from it. He did not yet know that this would be his last evening of this way of life. That same evening, not far from where he slept, an event occurred that had nothing to do with him, but it was this event that forever changed Steve's life for the better. A well-known musical group was supposed to perform on local radio, and the host Tim Shaw was preparing for this meeting in advance. He prepared a grandiose show for radio listeners and hoped to raise the ratings of his program. But the unexpected happened. The band's manager called Tim and said that due to circumstances beyond their control, the musicians would not be able to come to the studio today. Tim put the phone down as his world collapsed. So many announcements, so many people who wanted to hear the legendary band, so much effort was invested in the preparation, and in an instant it all disappeared under the influence of some unforeseen circumstances. Of course, one could simply announce to the audience that the long-awaited evening was canceled, but Tim Shaw would not be Tim Shaw if he did not know how to find a way out of any difficult situation quickly. A plan had already formed in his mind on how to keep the audience tonight. Now the main thing was to find someone else who would replace the performance of the musical group on the air. And he already had one person in mind. He heard him playing the accordion in the crosswalk not far from here. Now it was only necessary to hope that today he was in his usual spot. Tim ran out of the office and rushed to the crosswalk. As he ran down the steps, he felt a tremendous sense of relief. The merry sounds of the accordion and the sonorous voice of the one playing it reached his ear. Tim went up to the man and watched for a few seconds, listening to his virtuoso playing. He did not dare to interrupt the man during the performance, so he patiently waited for the end of the song and offered Steve to earn some money. Tim invited the man to play his songs on the radio, but as soon as the man stood up, Tim got a whiff of his unwashed clothes and noticed he was only wearing one shoe, so he began to have doubts. Steve, seeing the look on the DJ's face, was embarrassed to admit that his other shoe had become so worn out that he could no longer wear it. However, Tim did not have time to look for other options, so with a heavy heart and hoping he would not get fired for doing this, he motioned for Steve to follow him. When they entered the small studio, there was only a table and 2 microphones, and Steve's odor immediately filled the space. Tim's eyes even watered from the pungent smell, but there was nowhere to go. They had to go on air in a few minutes. Tim pointed Steve to his chair and put on his headphones, getting ready for the broadcast. For Steve, the whole environment was new and unfamiliar. He carefully sat down on the chair indicated to him and modestly hid his legs under the table. He waited to see what would happen next. After the welcoming speeches, Tim suggested that Steve play something for the listeners. When his hand touched the accordion keys, Tim immediately realized that he had made the right decision. Ratings soared literally from the very first minutes. Listeners occupied the phones of the studio to get to know the performer better. It was a success. Walking into the studio to make some money, Steve was a real star after only half an hour. The broadcast lasted longer than planned. The listeners did not want to let him go and asked to play something else for them. Everyone was very pleased. Tim was glad it turned out the way it did. On the same evening, he offered Steve a job on the radio on an ongoing basis. But there was only one condition. Steve had to clean himself up, get new clothes, and a haircut. The next day, Steve came to the office where they drew up a contract with him and even gave him some money up front so that he could take care of himself. After the man visited the hairdresser and changed his clothes, no one could even recognize him. Only his old accordion in his hands revealed him as yesterday's dirty homeless man. It turned out that Steve is even very good looking. The only thing he now lacked was a wide-open smile because the man had almost no teeth. Then the management of the radio gave Steve $5,500 for new teeth, and that very same week he visited the dentist for the first time in many years. Later, the radio management, seeing the ratings this man was bringing to them with his accordion, took him on as a permanent staff and assigned him a salary of $5,000 a month. He did not expect this turn of events. Until recently, playing in a pedestrian crossing for pennies and eating leftovers, Steve could not even imagine that in one evening his life could change so dramatically. Now the man had enough money to rent a small apartment near the studio. He began to eat regularly and properly and bought himself beautiful new clothes for all seasons. Now no one could imagine this man was homeless only weeks before. So fate gave Steve a chance for a new life. He is still grateful that that evening a musical group could not get on the air of this radio station. He is also very grateful to Tim Shaw for his seemingly crazy idea of bringing a bum off the street to play on the radio that night. But it was this idea that pulled Steve out of his hopeless situation. With the help of Tim, fate extended a helping hand to Steve, which he accepted with great pleasure. Thanks to this, now Steve's life has completely changed. He was even invited to the Sony Radio Awards as the most virtuoso accordion player, and we can only now wish Steve further creative success and good luck in life, because not every person is given a hand by fate at the moment when they are already desperate to receive at least some gift from it.